Okay, thank you, Ms.
There we
Schaefer.
go. All
Okay,
right.
there we go.
Good. I'll introduce you guys. Good morning, everybody. If you are joining us live, welcome. And if you're watching the recording, welcome. Very excited about this virtual parent coffee this morning. We have our test taking preparation coffee presented by Miss Gina Lee and one of our fabulous special education teachers and our school counselor, Miss Amber Fisher. And I will kick it off to them to take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stein. So I'm Gina Lee. I'm one of the special education teachers here at Delavan. I'm also a parent at Delavan. I have a kindergarten student and a second grade student. As a special educator, I work with all the grades. So I have a lot of different knowledge about math and ELA in all the different grades. So we'll be talking about test taking prep for classroom assessments today.
And as the school counselor here, we're also going to talk about anxiety that students often get when it comes to test taking and some of the things that as parents you can do to help your student when they're having that kind of anxiety.
Okay. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming, either live or for watching. And we're going to talk about how to support your child during test preparation, tips that you can do at home, and then also how to help them manage their anxiety. So thank you for connecting with us and being our partner. We notice a huge difference when parents are involved with test prep and talk to their kids about it, and their kids tell us about it. So it's just really nice to make that connection. Okay, so we'll talk about some test taking strategies that will help your student actually during a classroom assessment, and then some things you can do at home to help them feel prepared. And then Ms. Fisher will really dive into how to address student challenges if they're feeling anxious, or how to help them through some coping strategies. Okay, so we're going to really focus on two test taking strategies that we talk a lot about in class, and especially the way that a lot of our classroom assessments are designed now are mostly multiple choice, and that helps students to prepare for some of the high stakes tests that they take in third, fourth, and fifth grade. And there'll be more parent copies on how to, specifically about high stakes tests, but we do always have that in mind when we're making our classroom assessments to make sure that kids are prepared for that. So the two main strategies that we're focusing on are time management and process of elimination. So you probably heard these before, but it's nice to know that we are talking about them in the classroom, and that kind of reminding students about those will help them do their best on a classroom assessment. So time management. Kids will often get to a question and get stumped by it, and we'll see them kind of sit and struggle and sort of stare off, and they might take up a lot of their time on this one question, and they'll feel as though they have to answer that before they can move on. So we really want to encourage students to go ahead and flag it. So most of our in third, fourth, and fifth grade, our minors and majors are on Elluminate, which is an online testing system, and you can literally flag it. There's a little place to put a reminder to come back and check that. So we're really encouraging students that if you're stumped by something, to go ahead and move on to another question. Because most of the questions are multiple choice, sometimes when you answer another question, it'll actually help you to figure out an answer on one that you're having trouble with. So we definitely want to encourage kids to go ahead and flag it and then come back to it at the end of the test. If kids stay on that one question, often their confidence goes down. You can see it on their face. They start to really feel like they're not going to do well, and then it can affect the rest of the test. So definitely go ahead and remind them, especially if they feel like they're acting anxious at home about an upcoming test, that they should be using that strategy to help them. And then process of elimination, you've probably heard of that before. So it's a way to boost your chance on multiple choice questions. Instead of trying to spot the right answer right away, you focus on removing the wrong ones first. Each time you cross one off, your odds of being correct improve. But the other part of that is that it is so important to read all answer choices. So multiple choice questions are designed to have distractors, and a lot of them are worded now to choose the best answer. So you really have to read all 4 choices. There's one that could be the answer, but then you realize later on that there's one that's a better answer. So part of the process of elimination strategy is making sure that you go through all answer choices. We have a little magic maybe on the slide. So that's also a little trick that we use to encourage kids to read all the answers. If they get to one that they think is correct and they're pretty sure it's correct, they just put a little M for a magic maybe. And then you still go through and read all the choices, cross out the ones you know are wrong. And then if it is the magic maybe, great. And then they select that one. So that's just a little trick to help students remember to read all the answer choices. Kids can get impulsive and we can see them pick answers pretty quickly. And so then we know that they didn't use magic maybe or process of elimination. So that's just like a fun way to remind them to go ahead and read all the answer choices. And they can even actually put the M on the paper copy. So even if they take it online, there's usually a paper copy, so they can go ahead and mark that. And that's something you could even discuss in sign-in returns, like, oh, I can see that you used the magic maybe, just to encourage them to use that strategy. Okay, so I wanted to show you a couple of multiple choice questions that students are apt to see. A lot of our questions are now 2-part questions. And so that's a whole strategy in and of itself. And that's part of the reason why we use the process of elimination and the magic maybe to help kids really think their way through both parts of the question. So even as young as 2nd grade is using the 2-part questions. So just as an example, so you know what we're sort of talking about, both of these are from an ELA assessment. From our Wonders program, which is what K-5 uses for reading and writing instruction. And so the first part will ask a question, a direct question, and then part B, you'll have to find the evidence to support it. So part of that strategy is that if you're struggling on part A, we encourage kids to go ahead and read part B because that might help you narrow down your choices for part A. So you have to have a supporting detail in part B that matches your answer to part A. So that's part of how you go through it. So you might put your magic maybe, like I think it's A, and then you go through those, but then you come down here and you make sure that there's a matching detail that matches your choice for A. And if you read these answers, you haven't read this story, but even if you read through the answers, they are quite tricky. So she gains respect for something that is the correct answer, but she begins to be kind to animals. In this particular story, the character is kind to animals, but they didn't begin to be. They were just always kind to animals. So, they're very small nuances in the details. But when you go down here, the supporting detail is pretty clear that that is the correct answer. There's also a lot of vocabulary questions on our reading assessments. So again, what does the word enormous mean? So we know what that word means, but for a student, if they don't know, they can go through, there's different definitions to pick from, but again, they have to find a detail that matches that. So if they're not sure what the definition is, it's really helpful to read through part B and look at the details and say, oh, 5 feet tall means that they're huge. So I would definitely encourage using the magic maybe and the process of elimination and reading through all the answer choices to help our students. Okay, so how can you support at home? The number one way is to carefully read the Sway. I know we get a lot of emails from Delvin and from school, but the newsletter Sway that comes out on Fridays from each grade level has so much important information. So you definitely want to flag that. And if Friday is not the best day to read it, definitely come back to it at the beginning of the week. There's so much important information in it about what your students are covering in class. So not just the standards, but also some important activities, especially as we get into 4th and 5th grade. That's when the classroom assessments are more demanding on the students, and we would expect them to review more at home to really do their best. So you definitely want to look at this way as your number one source of information for upcoming assessments. There's optional homework now in math. It's completely optional, but it is nice to have that ability if you want to review math at home. So students have brought their homework practice books home, and then the teacher is linking in this way what the topics are for the week. So you have a resource already at home that you can use to help review for math. Start a consistent study routine. So especially in 4th and 5th grade, and mainly for science and social studies, there's a lot of content that the kids are learning. So if you can just study a little bit at a time and start a routine on that, it will really help the kids. Make sure it's a quiet study environment. Talk about the test-taking strategies that we just reviewed. That empowers the student to know that they have a plan for how they're going to attack the assessment. And then Ms. Fisher will get more into the emotional support. But I also just wanted to go over just the subjects and just the grade levels, just some pointers to work on at home. This is elementary school, so the teachers do a great job preparing the kids for assessments. And so we don't expect students to have to study per se, especially in K-3. So, but there are things you can do at home to prepare your student to be a better student. So in reading, K-2 and 3 to 5, read books together, read for fun, read for pleasure, read as much as you can with your kids. There is a lot of vocabulary that's tested, but studies show that really to grow your vocabulary, you just need to read more. So I think that reading for pleasure is the best thing that you can do. And when you're reading with your kids, you can ask them questions. So just as a resource that you have access to on ClassLink through McGraw-Hill, and I have a slide that will show us how to do that. You can go to the McGraw-Hill app and see the workbooks that we use in class, and there's great questions on the Wonders resources that help you sort of know how to ask questions with your student when you're reading stories. You can also review the stories that we're reading in class. So often in this way, it will go over the stories, but also I'm sure your kids will know them. My kids always tell me which stories they're reading. And so you can search any story that they're reading in class on the app, and it will bring it up and you can read it with your student. You can even click on it. It will read aloud to you. So it's a great way to review the story and just make sure that your students are understanding what they're reading. So we wouldn't expect you to study per se for a reading assessment, but you can ask similar questions that we're asking in class, and that's just a great way to review and to just increase reading comprehension at home. In writing, again, same thing, just sort of writing for pleasure. So having some sort of journal, letter writing, like I know when we were young, we used to write letters. I don't know if kids do that anymore, but if you have family or friends that they could write to, I think it's a really fun activity to do with kids. In K-2, we're really focusing on practicing capital letters at the beginning, punctuation, just helping them get their thoughts out. In 3 through 5, we do have more writing assessments, and I'll show you on the next slide. Again, at home, it's not necessarily studying, but just going over their writing process. So when they take writing assessments, they're tied to text. So the students will have to read a text that they haven't seen before, and then there'll be a writing prompt. So just talking through that process of make sure you read the prompt, make sure you understand the prompt, then you go to your text and you find your evidence. So I'll show you an example of that. So just talking through that process will help kids feel empowered and prepared for tests. Math. Please, 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 please. The one thing that we would ask at home is K-2 study the addition and subtraction basic facts. And this can be old school, like get the flashcards out. You know, there's lots of games online or games you can make up at home. But the more efficient your students are with their basic facts, the better that they'll do in math. So really focusing on the basic facts in K-2. So in 2nd grade, students will start adding and subtracting double-digit numbers with regrouping. So if they have those basic facts down, it will make that process so much easier. And then for 3rd through 5th grade, same thing, but for the multiplication and division facts. So in 3rd grade, we teach multiplication, and we really focus on the conceptual multiplication and division, the conceptual understanding. So students understand how to find the answer of, for example, 3 times 5. They can do 3 groups of 5 and they can draw it out and they understand what that means. But then as you move up in 4th and 5th grade, you have to be able to apply that to some pretty big numbers. So doing double-digit multiplication and multi-digit long division. So the more efficient they are with those facts, the better they'll do. So I think that that's the best thing you could do at home, is to make sure that they've really mastered and are efficient with their basic facts. Also in 3 through 5, really encouraging them to show their work. So the numbers are getting bigger. Kids don't always want to show their work, but if you build that routine in, if you are doing any of the optional homework, really getting away from doing things in your head, showing your work, proving your answer is really important. For science and social studies, again, K-2 is really just exposure to those subjects, and the SWAY always has the topics on it. So just talking to your kids about it, like I learned a lot about James Oglethorpe from my second grader. He was really into that and wanted to tell me all about it. So just having conversations about it. They love talking about it, the science and the life cycle and all those things. So just check this way for the topic, and then you can just ask a simple prompt, and I bet that they'll be able to tell you a whole lot about it. In 3rd grade, again, it's getting a little bit more serious, but those are all open book tests. So we don't necessarily expect you to study at home. We prepare the students in class. 4th and 5th grade, there's a lot of science and social studies content. So again, that's heavily stressed in this way. And students have workbooks online, and they can also bring it home. And so we do encourage you to use the notes that are provided, and also the highlighting. The teachers guide the highlighting that's in the social studies textbook. So whatever is highlighted really is the most important information, not just kind of like random highlighting. So really focus on the notes and the highlighted material to review with your students at home. Okay. So we'll attach this at the end, but ClassLink does have tons of resources. So if you have not been to the McGraw-Hill app, click on Wonders, and then you can type in any story, or just click on the anthology, which has all the stories that we read, and then the Reading Running Companion, which is this picture at the bottom. It will have a story, and then the white columns on the side are all questions and prompts that teachers ask. So that's a really good place to look for ideas on questioning when you're reading with your kids at home. And then for writing assignments, this is just like an example of the writing process. So just kind of talking about your student about how they're going to go through a writing assessment, how they're going to read the prompt, how they're going to read the text. Are they going to use a graphic organizer? So this is one that we used in 3rd grade last year. We have a similar one for 4th grade this year. And then down at the bottom is just a little way to help them remember how to edit and revise. So these are things that you can just talk through the process.
Okay, I'm up. So, excuse me, alongside knowing the material and how to properly test for it and how you can help them, anxiety is one of the biggest concerns when it comes to test taking, especially those high-stake testing. Anxiety is a term that most kids don't actually understand. Right now, through K through 5, we're teaching them their emotions and how to put the appropriate word to match that emotion. So when they're going through anxiety, they don't necessarily realize that it's anxiety. And so there can be a lot of fear behind that, not knowing whatever that feeling is going on inside of them. And so having that extra support to help guide them through it is really, really important. And anxiety shows up in many ways. We see it here at school, and I'm sure if you're working with your child at home, you've seen it not just in testing, but in other areas as well. Very common is stomach aches, headaches. They may have trouble sleeping, especially if they know the test is coming up the next day. They may start to go through that negative self-talk. What if I'm going to fail? Are my parents going to be mad at me? Am I going to make it to the next grade? We get that a lot with milestones. And on that note, yes, your child can still take milestones and go to the next grade. That doesn't mean they're going to not move on. But just forgetting materials, their mind gets so boggled with that fear, that emotion that they don't understand, that especially at school, we see second semester especially, we see a lot more students in the nurse's office not feeling well. And that's usually when they call me in. And the minute we start talking about it, it's we have a test coming up, we're really nervous. And so paying attention, especially to your students' behavior and helping them understand that it's normal, it's okay. Yep, I'll move on. All right. So ways we can promote this, help promote it as parents, setting that growth mindset, helping them understand that mistakes happen. Okay, we all make mistakes. It's okay. The important part is that we're going to learn from them. We're going to challenge ourselves. We're going to continue working at it, because with that growth mindset, we're saying, you know what, I may not have mastered it yet, but that doesn't mean we're going to give up. We're going to keep working at it. And that goes along with that perseverance and confidence, building that confidence, the fear of failure among students. Once we have that confidence, that perseverance, they feel like I can keep doing this. I'm proud of myself, even the littlest things, you know, like example, I really wanted to get up to I don't quite know if we do letter grades here. I know that's really sad, but I promise you, I'm really good at the emotional side of things. But just even wanting to move up a few points or a next grade or something, and the minute they accomplish it, even if it's only by a few points, that is huge. We want to praise them for that, because it's showing that they are making growth, and that helps support their confidence. So, and that goes back to that growth, even the smallest achievements, provide constructive feedback. Sometimes we want to say, oh, but you knew that, we studied this. Why didn't you know that? Why didn't you do this? And that can add that pressure back onto them. And so just when we talked about reading all of the questions all the way through, very common, even though we can tell them a million times to read it all the way through every single thing, they sometimes skip ahead or they become impulsive. So just reminding them, hey, you know what? I know you know the answer. So it's okay. You can, you'll get it next time. Just remember, let's read everything through. So just constructive feedback, letting them know that it's okay and you're going to get there. You're going to help them get there. The teachers are helping them get there. So by providing that growth mindset as they go through life, whether it's academics or otherwise, they're going to have that mindset saying, you know what, I can keep going. I have that perseverance. I can keep going with whatever challenges come my way moving forward. And so that is definitely important. Excuse me. Okay. So ways in which you as a parent can help them through this testing, okay? Reducing that stress and building that confidence. Validate their feelings, okay? You can recognize the anxiety before they can identify it. So let them know it's okay to be nervous. You can explain to them that those feelings, it's what we call anxiety. They know nervous a little bit quicker than they know anxiety, but using terms that they may understand, letting them know that it's normal, normalize it for them. Letting them know that, yeah, work is hard, but you're going to get there, you're ready for this. We've worked on it. It's fine. And then just a lot of it comes from what you say as a parent. Do your best. I'm proud of you no matter what. They know that going into this test, if they make a mistake, it's okay. I'm going to come home. My parents love me. We're going to keep moving forward. That pressure, avoid putting any pressure on them. Okay, again, we're focusing on that progress that they make, even if it's the smallest bit of progress. We want to build their confidence. Create a calming routine, especially if you are seeing the anxiety and close to that testing. Okay, make sure they're getting that good night's sleep, they're getting that healthy breakfast, they have that energy going for them. Before a test, that next morning especially, be prepared, make sure you're ready to set that alarm on time, because if they're rushed and they feel late, they're not having time to just calm down and debrief. They're thinking about, am I going to make this test on time? Am I going to get there? And so it makes it a little bit harder for them to just come into school with that calm feeling. Self-talk, again, we go back to the self-talk a lot because students need to learn how to practice that self-talk, and it starts with the encouragement from their parents, from their adult surroundings. Okay, I can try my best. I'm prepared. I can do this. I have worked on this. And the relaxation techniques, this is really important. We don't always realize that deep breathing is actually got a scientific background to it to show how it can truly calm your body and relax your muscles, especially if you're feeling tense. visualization. Maybe you walk them through a calm place, have them lay down there. I'm thinking, just have them lay down. And then close their eyes and just walk them through a calming place. Where's a place that makes you feel comfortable? And you're taking them to imaginary land where they can get their mind to calm down, be in a happy place. The use of stress balls or fidgets. These are always important too, because it allows their hands to keeps their body active, so their mind is less active. So any of these things, all of these things are really important in helping your child. And this isn't just before taking any test. This is something you should do on a daily basis. When they come home and they're telling you what story they're reading, just, the fact that they remember the story or that they're sharing what they're learning with you, that's really important. And just encourage them to keep doing those things and build that confidence. One thing, and I know as parents, we always want the best for our child, and we should. It's really important to do that. We want them to succeed, but sometimes, even though we mean well, we can tend to encourage them too much to where we put more pressure on them. And most children have this fear of disappointing their parents. So by that fear, it can lead to that test anxiety alone. So we want to be really careful how we come across as far as how we take that, the importance of taking that test. We may feel it's really, really important, but we need to pay attention to how they're feeling, their body language, the anxiety that they have, and understand that for them to do better, we need to kind of push some of our thoughts and, remind ourselves to hold back on some of the things we want to say and just keep encouraging them to do their best. A calm, supportive environment, building that confidence, that's what's gonna help kids really thrive. So,
Okay.
yeah. And with that, do you have any questions? I don't see it on yours.
Okay.
I'm trying to see. We do have let's see. We have a QR code that may not have appeared on this slide yet, but we'll get you that QR code.
Yes.
And within that QR code, it gives you materials as far as it gives you a full list of breathing techniques you can practice with your students or with your children. It also gives you coping strategies that you can use, as well as if you're into crafts and you want to do something to provide fidgets, there's a list of different activities that you can do with them, making your own type of sensory materials, just fun activities that can help them, especially for them to utilize during their test taking.
Yeah.
Or anytime, really. It doesn't have to be tests. It's anytime, we all have our moments. We need to be calmed down. And so those fidgets, so yeah, check that out. There's a bunch of resources there to help them with those things.
Okay, there's the QR code, so you can go ahead and snap that if you would like a link to the resources we discussed. There's some really cute ones for
And then you have
for the
some
fidgets
as well
and the
on there.
sensory, and then just the reminders about topics to study at home. So yeah, thank you all so much for coming. And always feel free to email us as well if you have more questions.
Definitely.
Our links are on the Delvin website, so feel free to email us. Yeah, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Great job.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Lee and Miss Fisher. That was great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Gosh.